Kathy Engelbert walked out. That alone should have said everything. The commissioner of the WNBA, during the finals, looked around at the ghost town arena for the Aces versus Mercury matchup and dipped. Less than 150 fans scattered throughout a championship game that had A'ja Wilson and Dana Bonner on the floor. The optics? Catastrophic. The reality? Even worse. Just months ago, Caitlin Clark had the WNBA in a chokehold. Every step she took, every shot she drained made headlines. But now, without her in the finals, the buzz vanished overnight. The league didn't just lose a player. They lost their entire marketing engine. And it showed.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
A'ja Wilson had carried the Aces through another dominant season. But when it came time to cash in on that momentum, the league fumbled. The arena was silent. The broadcast felt like a local game. Dana Bonner, seasoned and outspoken, didn't hold back, calling out the lack of support and questioning why the league couldn't fill seats for its biggest event. The disappointment wasn't subtle, it was seething. And the kicker? Tickets were cheap. You could buy entry to the finals for less than a parking pass. That's not a fan appreciation move. That's desperation. The league knew it couldn't sell hype anymore, not without Clark, not without a viral storyline. And fans didn't bite. Even with historic franchises and elite talent, the finals failed to capture anything. No social media waves. No viral plays. No sports bar debates. The WNBA was trending for all the wrong reasons. What should have been a celebration of women's basketball became a stark reminder of how little foundational support the league actually has. The marketing missed. The media coverage was a blip. And the players? They felt it. A'ja Wilson's quiet frustration mirrored the empty chairs around her. Bonner's words turned into a rallying cry. But who was listening? This wasn't just a rough turnout. It was a structural failure. The over-reliance on Caitlin Clark was never supposed to be the plan, but now the league's inability to build multiple storylines or elevate more stars is catching up to them. When one player leaves the spotlight, the whole system collapses. Engelbert's walkout was more than optics. It was a metaphor, a silent admission that even leadership wasn't ready to face what this finals revealed. The WNBA isn't just struggling with attention, it's losing its grip on relevance. The WNBA Finals were supposed to be a celebration, a climax, a high-octane showdown between two elite teams fighting for the crown. Instead, they looked more like a preseason scrimmage in a half-empty high school gym. If you blinked, you might have missed them altogether. And you wouldn't be alone, because while the league pushed hard to frame the Aces versus Mercury series as a battle of titans, the fans just didn't show up, literally. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert reportedly walked out after witnessing the shockingly low turnout. Just 150 fans in the arena at tip-off. 150. For a finals game. That's not a bad crowd for a rec league. That's a disaster for a professional sports championship. And if that number does make you do a double take, the $30 tickets on resale sites might. $30 for floor seats? That's not a discount. That's a warning sign. Let's be real. This was how the league thought things would go. After all the hype, all the momentum during the regular season, especially with the explosion of Caitlin Clark's fan base, this was supposed to be the moment. But once Clark was out of the picture, the energy vanished. Her absence in the finals wasn't just noticeable, it was devastating. No highlights trending, no viral clips, just silence. The league had banked everything on that spark, continuing to the postseason. But without Clark, the engine stalled. A'ja Wilson and Dana Bonner? They showed up. They played their hearts out. But the crowd didn't. The cameras panned across rows of empty seats. The vibe? Dead on arrival. It was almost surreal. These are top-tier athletes at the peak of their game, playing for a championship in front of crickets. The disappointment from players wasn't hidden either. Wilson gave a quiet but biting comment, alluding to how painful it is to pour everything into a game no one seems to care about. Bonner didn't hold back either. She called out the lack of respect, the lack of support, the lack of energy. You could feel the frustration boiling under every word. It was a meltdown, not the dramatic, Bench clearing, buzzer beating kind. But the slow, painful kind. The kind that happens when the foundation starts cracking under years of missed opportunities, flawed marketing, and a disconnect with the people who are supposed to care the most. The fans. Where was the media buzz? Nowhere. ESPN barely mentioned it. Social platforms that were obsessed with Caitlin Clark a few weeks ago. Radio silence. The WNBA's own accounts tried to pump it up, but the engagement numbers told the truth. Nobody was watching. Nobody was talking. For a league that desperately needs visibility, this was a complete blackout. And let's talk about the pricing. During the regular season, tickets were sky high in some cities, especially with Clark in town. People paid hundreds just to be in the building. But when it came time for the finals, you could barely give the tickets away. That dramatic drop isn't just about money. It's about perceived value. If fans are willing to camp out and spend big to see one player, but won't shell out $30 to watch the actual championship, something is very wrong. The league leaned hard on historic narratives, franchise legacies, seasoned veterans, playoff rivalries, but it all fell flat. Without a clear, compelling story or a major headliner to center the drama around, there was nothing to grab onto. The average fan didn't see a must-watch finals. They saw two teams with solid resumes, but no magnetic pull, no tension, no stakes that felt bigger than basketball. And that's where the deeper problem lies. The WNBA has become increasingly dependent on a small group of star players to carry the entire league's relevance. Caitlin Clark isn't just a rookie. She's become the headline. When she plays, people watch. When she doesn't, they don't. That level of over-reliance on one figure is dangerous. It exposes a fragile system that can't maintain momentum unless a viral player is front and center. A'ja Wilson is one of the best players the league has ever seen. Dana Bonner is a vet with a resume to back it up. But that doesn't matter if the marketing machine can't make people care. And clearly it couldn't. The league has struggled for years to bridge the gap between die-hard fans and casual watchers. And this year's finals prove the gap is still massive. There's a harsh irony here. The more the league talk about growth, the more obvious its blind spots become. The empty stands weren't just a bad look. They were a symbol, a sign of disconnect. Fans have been saying for years that they want better coverage, cheaper access, more compelling storytelling. What they got instead was inconsistent pricing, sporadic national broadcasts, and a final series that looked like an afterthought. If the league can't even make its championship feel like a big deal, how can it expect fans to treat it like one? And players are noticing. You can't fake passion, and you can't hide disappointment. Wilson and Bonner's comments were more than venting. They were a public red flag, a league in distress. They weren't just mad about one night or one game. They were calling out a pattern of neglect, of shallow investment, of promises that never deliver. Fans felt it too, on social media. Conversations quickly shifted from why isn't anyone at the game to what's wrong with the league? This wasn't a one-time attendance issue. It became a referendum on everything the WNBA has done or failed to do over the years. The marketing, the pricing, the lack of engaging narratives, the inability to keep casual fans hooked once the season heats up. Caitlin Clark's rise should have been a launching pad for the league. Instead, it became a crutch. When she was in, everyone tuned in. When she was out, the interest tanked. It's a harsh lesson in what happens when you let one star carry the weight of an entire league's engagement. The buzz disappears with them. That's not growth. That's dependence. This finals wasn't just underwhelming. It was a reality check. A brutal reminder that star power isn't a long-term strategy. That fans want more than just a highlight reel. They want connection, consistency, and something to believe in. And right now, they're not getting it. Even worse, the silence from the top. No major statements, no public action plans. Just a quiet retreat from what was supposed to be the league's shining moment. If the commissioner is walking out of the finals, what message does that send? Because from the outside, it screams one thing: this isn't working. And that's a shame, because the talent is there. The potential is obvious. But potential doesn't mean anything if the league can't figure out how to turn it into passion, into fandom, into something that fills arenas and fuels storylines. Right now, all we're seeing is squandered momentum and frustrated players asking questions no one at the top seems ready to answer. So what now? The WNBA is at a crossroads. Either it figures out how to fix this, or it keeps slipping further into irrelevance every time a finals game looks like a JV match with pro uniforms. If there was ever a wake-up call, this was it. You can't fake hype. You can't force people to care. You have to earn it. But that takes work. That takes vision. That takes listening to the people who've been trying to tell the league what they need. Access, excitement, storytelling, affordability, and stars who aren't burdened with carrying everything alone. Until that happens, expect more empty seats, more viral frustrations, and more missed opportunities. This wasn't just a disappointing finals. It was a warning siren. And the only question now is whether the league hears it or hits snooze again. If you're watching this shaking your head, you're not alone. What do you think the WNBA needs to fix first? Marketing? Pricing? Player support? Drop your take in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more breakdowns of sports chaos, celebrity PR flops, and every meltdown that's too wild to ignore. The optics of the 2025 WNBA Finals were an unfiltered embarrassment, and the aftermath, even worse. Because this wasn't just a poorly attended game. It was the league's flagship event, the pinnacle, the stage where everything should have come together. But instead of a legacy-defining moment, what we got was an empty arena echoing with silence, disappointment, and unspoken questions. And the loudest question of all, how did it get this bad? You had reigning champions, marquee franchises, and generational talent. But none of that could compete with the glaring absence of buzz. The fans had checked out, and you could feel it, not just in the empty seats, but in the energy or lack thereof. There was no roar from the crowd, no momentum shifts driven by fan noise, no goosebumps. It didn't feel like a finals. It felt like a Tuesday night pickup game that accidentally got televised. And let's not pretend this is all on the fans, because this wasn't just a matter of people not showing up. This was the culmination of a slow, steady erosion of connection between the league and its audience. Year after year, fans asked for accessible pricing, compelling narratives, and consistent exposure. And year after year, they get highlight clips buried at midnight, confusing playoff structures, and a league that feels reactive instead of proactive. So when the regular season became the Caitlin Clark show, of course the finals fell flat without her. That's what happens when you spotlight one player so intensely that the rest of the league disappears into the background. The WNBA didn't build a foundation. It built a spotlight. And when that spotlight moved on, there was nothing left to see. You don't need to be a marketing expert to see what went wrong here. The league rode the Clark wave without using it to elevate the rest of the talent. Instead of using her as a bridge to introduce fans to players like Wilson, Bonner, Stewart, or Ionescu, they just let the entire narrative orbit her. And now we're left with finals where two of the best players in the world are practically begging people to care. And A'ja Wilson? She didn't scream. She didn't rant. She didn't even blame. She just said enough to make it clear. This isn't sustainable. You could see it on her face, a mix of fatigue and frustration. She's been doing everything right. Playing elite basketball, winning championships, staying marketable, engaging with fans. And still, it's not enough. Still, she walks into a nearly empty arena on the biggest night of the season. Dana Bonner said it more bluntly. She dared people to respect women's basketball the way they claim they do online. She called out the gap between digital support and real-world attendance. And she's not wrong. People love to tweet about equality, love to repost highlights. But when it's time to show up, crickets. Empty seats. A finals game so underattended the commissioner couldn't sit through it. Let's talk about that. The commissioner walking out. That alone could be its own documentary. The person responsible for stewarding the league's growth, development, and reputation walking out of its biggest game of the year? That's not a bad look. That's a PR implosion. It sends a message louder than any headline. This isn't worth my time. You know what else sends a message? $30 tickets. That's not pricing for accessibility. That's desperation. That's a fire sale for a product the league can't figure out how to sell. And the wildest part? The talent is there. The drama is there. The athleticism is absolutely there. What's missing is the bridge between that product and the people. And that's squarely on the league's leadership. Because fans didn't disappear overnight. They were never properly brought in. The engagement strategy has been shallow, built around moments instead of movements. It's one thing to post a viral clip of a buzzer beater. It's another to build a season-long story arc that makes people care whether that shot goes in. The WNBA has leaned hard into highlight culture without realizing that real sports fandom comes from emotional investment. And that takes time, storytelling, and vision. Right now, the league is trying to sell a final chapter without ever telling the rest of the story. So, of course, nobody shows up for the ending. They didn't even know it started. And you know who suffers the most? The players. They're the ones working through off-seasons, training through injuries, fighting for relevance in a sports media landscape that still treats them like a footnote. They're putting everything on the line, only to be met with apathy. And when they speak out, it's seen as drama instead of what it really is, a desperate attempt to make people pay attention. There's also a harsh truth underneath all of this. The league's marketing machine simply isn't working. It's out of touch, inconsistent, and at times, downright confusing. Instead of creating cohesive campaigns that build investment over time, the league goes through bursts of excitement and then disappears. And when the biggest stage finally arrives, there's nothing left in the tank. Even social media, which should be the league's biggest asset, fell hollow during the finals. There were no trending hashtags, no memes, no viral reactions. Just a ghost town of stale graphics and low engagement. Compare that to regular season, when Clark's every move was dissected and reposted. The difference was night and day, and fans noticed. Here's another angle that's not getting enough attention. Community support is vanishing. WNBA teams used to be deeply connected to their cities, to local schools, youth programs, and grassroots initiatives. But that fabric is starting to fray. Without consistent community engagement, the fan base isn't growing. There's no loyalty being built. And loyalty is what fills seats, even when the stars are missing. What we're seeing is a league that's stuck between two identities. It wants to be mainstream, but it hasn't built the infrastructure to support that scale. It wants to be disruptive, but it's still playing by outdated rules. It wants to grow, but it's afraid to take risks. And in the middle of that identity crisis are the players, picking up the slack, speaking up, and bearing the brunt of the fallout. So where does this leave us? Honestly, at a breaking point. Because if the WNBA can't turn its championship event into a spectacle, then what hope is there for the rest of the calendar? If the league can't rally behind stars like Wilson and Bonner, two of the most decorated, consistent, and respected names in the game, then who can they build around? The answer isn't just wait for Caitlin Clark to carry us again. That's not a strategy. That's a dependency. And it's already proving fragile. What the league needs now is radical honesty and a complete reset of its marketing philosophy. It needs to stop treating fans like they're doing a favor by existing and start making them feel like they're part of something bigger. That means better pricing models, smarter media strategies, and most of all, accountability. Because the players have done their part. It's the infrastructure around them that's falling apart. The truth? You can't fake relevance. You can't Photoshop fan engagement. And you definitely can't ignore a finals disaster and expect the next season to magically fix itself. The damage is done, and if nothing changes, it's only going to get worse. This meltdown wasn't a fluke. It was the boiling point of years of misalignment, poor planning, and missed opportunities. And unless the league learns from it, really learns from it, we're going to be back here again next year, asking the same tired questions while players give the same frustrated interviews. The WNBA knew the pressure was on this year. The regular season brought in more eyes than ever before. Record viewership, packed arenas, national headlines. For the first time in a long time, it felt like the league was right there, standing at the edge of a breakthrough. All they had to do was keep the momentum going. Instead, they fumbled the bag so hard, it bounced into another zip code. This final series was supposed to be the exclamation point at the end of a landmark season, a chance to prove that the excitement wasn't just a flash in the pan, that the league had depth, breadth, staying power. But what we saw, what the players were forced to play through, It was more of a punctuation error, an awkward ellipsis hanging in dead air, while everyone looked around wondering what just happened. And yes, Caitlin Clark was a huge factor in the regular season success. Her arrival changed the equation. She brought in new fans, forced media outlets to pay attention, and gave the league a fresh storyline. But if one player can cause viewership to spike, and then crash when she's not there, that's a red flag the size of the scoreboard. The league should have taken that attention and distributed it. Used it to spotlight the vets who've been putting in work for over a decade. Introduce Clark fans to Wilson, to Bonner, to Hamby, to Copper. Instead, it treated the buzz like a windfall, not a foundation. And now, when the spotlight moved, everything under got exposed. There was no backup plan, no sustained fan pipeline, no reason for casuals to stick around once the headlines stopped writing themselves. So here we are, standing in the ruins of what could have been a statement season. A finals that should have echoed through sports media for weeks came and went like a forgotten episode. No fanfare, no legacy moment, just disappointment. Written all over the players' faces and etched into the empty plastic seats behind them. This wasn't a stumble. It was a structural failure. And if the league doesn't take this moment seriously, if it brushes this off as bad timing or unlucky matchups, it's going to keep repeating the same cycle. A burst of hype, a single star, a brief spotlight, and then nothing. That's not growth. That's a loop. And right now, it's spinning in place. So let's be blunt. If the WNBA wants to grow, really grow, it needs to stop reacting and start building. Build stories. Build stars. Build trust with fans who are tired of being asked to care when the league itself can't even fill a finals game. This isn't about one player. It's about everyone. And if that message didn't land when the commissioner walked out of the arena, it better land now. Still with us? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Who do you think should be the face of the WNBA's rebuild? And if you want more deep dives into meltdowns like this, don't forget to subscribe. We're not done unpacking this disaster. Not even close.